Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Denise, go ahead and start your video and your microphone, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good evening. Thanks, Chad. Can you all hear me? So tonight we're going to cover several items very quickly that are important to your financial aid future. Let's answer the first question first, or the question about why the FAFSA is important, and then we'll move into other topics. The FAFSA is your gateway to all other financial aid. It's your federal aid application, and all schools are going to ask you if you completed the FAFSA. Types of aid that are out there, we'll cover that, the sources of aid, and we'll cover 3 new terms that you will need to know because that's the lingo that people are going to use when you talk financial aid. And then we'll talk about timing of financial aid. What is financial aid? It's money that comes to you, comes to the school on your behalf to pay down your bill. It can be a grant. A grant is free money, money that you do not have to pay back. A lot of grants, the Pell Grant comes through the FAFSA. All other financial aid is work study. Schools have lots of part-time jobs, but not all of them are work study. Work study is a subset of a part-time job on your campus, and it's a federal award. Where does it come from? It comes from the FAFSA. Loans sometimes are a big part of financial aid, and that's money you borrow to pay down your school bill. An educational loan, though, doesn't have to be paid back monthly. It can, but it also can be deferred until after you graduate. And then scholarships are the money that we really love because you can keep applying for scholarships and gather that all 4 years as you move through school. And scholarships can come from a lot of different sources. What are the sources? We've talked about federal financial aid. The FAFSA, that is a Pell Grant. It can be work study and it can be your direct loans. Also, if your parents need to take a loan called the PLUS loan, that's a federal piece of financial aid that they can apply for once you have completed a FAFSA. State financial aid, that is what you apply for through your home state. You must be a resident of that state to use that financial aid. Institutional aid is money that a school may give you to come to their school. Most commonly, we think of institutional aid something like a football scholarship. You have to play football at that school before you can get that money to pay down your school account. But schools have a lot more financial aid, institutional aid, then they have athletic scholarships, and so there are opportunities for you. Scholarships from the outside, we call them outside or private scholarships, and those scholarships can come from charitable organizations like the Bill Gates Foundation. They can come from a third party like Veterans Benefits. They can come from Granny's Quilting Club, your high school booster, or any number of other places where you may apply for a scholarship and receive it, or you may do something and earn the scholarship. Throw the football through the Dr. Pepper can, and you have earned big money to go to the college of your choice. Who can have federal financial aid? Any U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen can have federal financial aid. There are some other bullet points on this screen that tell you what you have to do or be to have financial aid, and so through the federal program, and we'll get into some more details about the federal program as we move on through. State financial aid can only be used in the state where you are residing, and you apply for it through your state's Department of Higher Education. A resident of Arkansas will say can have financial aid through the Arkansas Department of Higher Education, and they can use that aid at a school in Arkansas. State financial aid will not cross the state line. It has to stay home. Institutional aid would be given to students who are admitted to the school, and of course can only be used at the school where you have been admitted and you choose to enroll. Private scholarships, or those out scholarships we were referring to, those can be taken almost anywhere. There may be a few scholarships out there that say if you go to X school then you can have this money, but most of them will go with you wherever you go. That's the same with federal aid. Now, Financial aid, it's kind of tough to get sometimes, so once you get it, you want to maintain it. A couple things that happen when you are offered some financial aid: know what you need to do to get that money to pay down your account. You may need to complete a master promissory note with a loan, for example, some electronic paperwork to get that money to pay down your account. Scholarships, private scholarships, sometimes those you'll have to write a thank you letter to the donor or something else. But there are things that you may have to do, and your school will tell you this, or the people giving you the money will tell you what you need to do to get that money initially. If the scholarship or the financial aid is renewable, in other words, you can keep it from year to year, please know what you need to do each year, each semester, to get that money coming back in the next year. How many hours do you need to complete? What's the GPA that you need to have moving forward, like in your freshman year, to get that money for your sophomore year? Here's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time as we talk about these new terms. The first one was the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Aid. All students will want to complete one. It is your application for the free money, like a Pell Grant. It is your application to be able to have a work-study job on campus. It's your application for loans, and if you have completed a FAFSA, that is the requirement a lot of times for a lot of other scholarship applications. They want to know one of these other terms, the EFC, that we're going to have out of the FAFSA. They want to know what your EFC is to know if you're eligible for need-based aid. Free is in the name of the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, because there are companies out there that will charge you to complete one for you. But by the time you give them the information that they need to complete it, you could have had the application done. So you just spent $50 or more and you could have done it yourself. A FAFSA really is kind of like the IRS tax form, the 1040-EZ. It's a few questions. It really is pretty simplified so that it can apply easily to the most people, the majority of the students applying, and it doesn't have to be complicated. There are a lot of helps out there on the web. Your schools will have helps, and your counselors at your high school can help you as well in completing the FAFSA. So it is the free application for federal student aid. What does that application do? It calculates what we call the estimated family contribution. You don't have to remember what EFC stands for, but just know that EFC is an important number. An estimated family contribution tells the school how much federal aid you can have, and it tells a scholarship person, somebody offering you a scholarship, that's need-based if you have great need or you have little need. It takes into account your family situation, how many in the family, where you live, what your family makes, what maybe you have in savings, some assets, and it also asks how many students are in school at the time of the application. The estimated family contribution boils down to a number. The lower that number, the greater need that you have, the greater need you have for financial aid of any kind. The higher that number, the federal government says, and some other organizations like your state aid sometimes, or some scholarships, will say that you don't have much financial need because your family is more affluent and can afford to help you pay for college. It's not a number that schools are going to expect that your family actually has in hand to pay for school, to pay your bill, but it does help tell us if you're eligible for a Pell Grant. All right? And it tells us if you're eligible for different types of loans. The third term that you will hear a lot about is the cost of attendance, COA, cost of attendance. And the cost of attendance is a budget. All schools have to calculate this because they are using federal aid. They are giving federal aid to students, or dispersing federal aid for students who are eligible through the FAFSA. And it is our maximum amount of aid that you could have going to this school. So a cost of attendance, my best analogy is that it is a budget. For example, like you are running a business. If you are running a business and need to go to the bank for a small business loan, you're going to budget that you present to them, and that helps them determine if the amount you're asking for is appropriate. So this is the same thing. This has line items in it, just like a household budget would, or a small business loan budget would have, a small business plan budget would have. In this budget, you have items like tuition and the fees. You have items like room, what's your housing going to cost? You have an item like meals, board, people call it, room and board, tuition and fees. Another line item is for personal expenses. We want you to bathe and to use deodorant while you are at school, so there is some expense in that line item. Personal expenses. Transportation is another line item that is calculated into your cost of attendance. You will have to go home sometime, or you will have to pay for some parking on campus, or you may have to have a car to get to and from your campus, and so there are some expenses there. And then the last item most commonly used in a financial aid budget are books. You have to have books to go to school or other resources, aids like a computer or something to use while you're in school. So that budget has those items, and each school will determine how much each of those line items might be. The cost of attendance is, like I say, the maximum amount of financial aid, loans included, everything included, that you could have at a school. That minus the estimated family contribution tells a school what your financial need might be. So a need-based scholarship would be the difference between the cost of attendance, that maximum budget, and the minus the estimated family contribution. Clear as mud? So in the federal student aid program, how much can a student get? This is where, folks, we have to talk some reality. The federal program never was designed to be able to finance your whole college yearly experience. It really is pretty minimal, and a lot of people just don't understand that. So in this academic year, students that are at the University of Arkansas, for example, this year, the maximum Pell Grant they are going to be able to receive would be $6,345. All right. And when we talk financial aid, almost always people are going to talk about the amount you can have for a year. And in the Pell Grant, this is $6,345 for the year. Half of it would pay to the fall bill, half of it would pay to the spring bill, and it's based on assuming you are enrolled in at least 12 hours per semester. Federal work study will be a set amount that the school offers you, but this is not money that is going to pay down the school bill. This amount will be what you can earn in an academic year to pay for expenses that you might incur. You can pay it toward your school bill, but schools cannot directly apply it to the bill. You're going to get a paycheck usually each 2 weeks, and that paycheck can be used for incidentals, or you can take it back to your bursar's office and pay down the bill with it. So the work study amount will be a set amount that breaks down to how many hours you can work across an academic year to earn off that amount. Subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, direct loans, that's what the federal program has for you. For a first-year student, $5,500 is the maximum amount of direct loan that you can borrow from the federal government. Again, half to the fall, half to the spring, and I have that 30 credit hours on the slide because this is the amount a student who has already earned 30 credit hours or less than 30 credit hours can have. Each year it goes up a little bit more. So for example, in what would traditionally be a sophomore year, your second year, after a student has completed 30 hours and until they get to 60 hours, then it goes up to 6,500. But the maximum amount any student could get each year is $7,500 per year, and that's after you have completed 60 hours or more. All right, so you can see that's not very much money really to pay for your whole college experience for a year. The next piece of federal financial aid is the PLUS loan. It's a parent loan. A biological or step parent can borrow this money on your behalf, and again, the money comes to the school and pays down your bill. But how do they get to borrow that PLUS loan? You have to complete a FAFSA first. All schools will ask you to complete a FAFSA, and they will ask students to use their loan eligibility, that 5,500 usually first, at least ask you to choose to or not to choose to decline the 5,500 before using the PLUS loan. A PLUS loan can be taken for that entire amount of that cost of attendance, that maximum financial aid budget, if you're not using or don't have any other financial aid. It's not advisable to do that, but if you have to, you can do that. So a PLUS loan maximum would be the cost of attendance, that financial aid budget, minus any other aid that you might have received. All right. How do I apply for federal student aid? The next few slides we won't go through in great detail, but I leave them here so that you have some tips and you have some explanation of how it works and where to go. But the first step for all students and a parent, unless you meet the independent student qualifications, and that is hard to do coming right out of high school. Most students are not going to be able to do that. You have to be a little older. Otherwise, your parents are going to have to be on your FAFSA. And so the first step is to create that federal student aid ID. You use your social security number, date of birth, so forth, to create a federal student aid ID, and it is how you sign into the FAFSA. It is how you sign the FAFSA. Your parents will create their own federal student aid ID on one of their social security numbers, and they will use that to sign their portion of the FAFSA on your behalf, and they will use that FSA ID to apply for a PLUS loan if they have to. You have a couple tips there. I would suggest you have an email address that you're going to tie this to that will not change. A school ID, a school email account will change when you graduate. Even parents, your employers, email account might change if you change jobs or should become unemployed. I would not use an ID tied to something that may change. Use a personal Gmail or other account that you will use the rest of your life, so to speak. All right. Other pieces there are on the FAFSA website. There is information about what you would want to have before you complete the FAFSA. And there are two things to remember. When you're filling out the biographical information, the family information, the context for that information is this information true for the academic year that you are applying for? So the one that's coming up next for high school seniors will be July 1st of this coming 31st of this summer through the next year, your freshman year is what we're talking about in high school, in college. Are the family members that you are reporting going to be in that household for the next academic year? Financially, when you put in the numbers about the finances, the numbers that you're putting in are accurate or true as of the date you're completing the FAFSA. You don't project your income or project earnings on income, on savings accounts or so forth. You put what is true as of the date that you complete it. And there's some reference, a website for you to reference for some extra help there. Schools can help you with this too, your high school or your colleges. October 1st, we'll talk a little bit about the timeline, and the timing is October 1st is when you're going to begin a FAFSA, or it's open for the next aid year. Every year you will do a FAFSA at this time, starting October 1st, so that's today, and this is also the date in Arkansas where state applications become available. When you see a FAFSA, you might want to think that there is a FAFSA deadline to submit it. There really is not. It can be completed the whole year while you are in school, even into the summer if you're enrolled in the summer. But it opens each year on October 1st, and we advise that you do it as soon as you can so that you have everything in place. If the school has to ask for more information, you can get it to them in plenty of time so that you can have your aid ready when school starts. You might see a deadline for Arkansas, but that is when you look at the state deadlines, but that is actually for the state financial aid. Arkansas's deadline is June 1st. You can apply now, but you have to have that application in by the 1st of June. And other states may have other deadlines for their state financial aid. School deadlines can vary according to when they open the scholarship application. Usually they'll open the applications when they start admitting students, taking applications for the next academic year. Or if you're a current student at the school, it might be in the spring semester for money for the next fall. So a freshman at a university would complete an application in January for money from their school for their sophomore year. But that's where you have to read websites and keep on top of the application processes for these different pieces. FAFSA, of course, the federal financial aid help is there. Your schools will have help on their websites. Your state higher education department, Department of Higher Education, will have help about theirs. And almost always the schools in your area will know about their state application processes. After you submit a FAFSA, what do? You watch for an email from the Department of Education. They'll tell you that it was processed, and you want to read your student aid report. That is the answers to the questions that you submitted and the calculation of that estimated family contribution. Read the student aid report that has comments, and it will tell you if your school is going to need additional information. Schools have the responsibility to read those comments as well, and they will send you emails or letters telling you what they need next. So look for that and expect the school to contact you if you have been admitted and to ask you for that additional information. Follow their guidelines, and don't change your FAFSA unless a school directs you to, because that can mess up all sorts of things for you. If there are things that you think you made a mistake on, let the school help you make that correction. That's what we're here for. We act as agents of the Department of Education, the federal department, to help you clarify things. All right? I think that's probably the biggest problem I see that students face. Once they get admitted to a school and send their FAFSA to us, then they don't pay attention to what the school is requesting to actually finish up the aid process. All right? After the schools make an offer to you, then you're going to want to compare what they've done and see what their costs are against the aid that they are offering. Naturally, private schools will offer more money, their costs are greater, and so sometimes their aid packages look really large, but when you look at the cost to attend at that school, it's pretty large as well. They still can't give you any more than $5,500 for a loan or the Pell Grant amount that we discussed. So, and in the parentheses, I have hour 15 to 4. The reason I put that out there is because for most degree programs, it takes 15 or 16 hours a semester to graduate in 4 years. So when a school is calculating the cost and telling you what your financial aid is or how much your tuition might be, then are they calculating that on 15 hours full time? everybody agrees is 12 hours, but to get to graduation in 4, you need 15. All right, 15 or 16. Your programs will tell you how much that is. So are they comparing apples to apples? 15 hours tuition cost, room and board, that's going to be different at each school, of course, so the cost will be different there. Are they adding in loans, assuming that you're going to take the loan? Remember, a loan is something that you have to pay off, and you have to repay that. Some schools will put a plus loan, the parent plus loan, in their financial aid offer when that is a separate application, and you don't know if your parent can have a plus loan until they apply and until after your aid has been calculated for the year. All right. My caution about room and board is that sometimes tuition and fees will be pretty similar from schools, but room and board is where you can really make a difference in how much your school cost is going to be. Are you choosing the single room on campus that's in the newest dorm that has the most amenities? That's going to run up your cost typically at most schools. And or are you choosing the board plan, the meal plan that has the most dollars or points that allow you to buy food at Chick-fil-A on campus versus going to the dining room? Things like that the room and board that you plan that you choose, that is your choice, can run up your costs significantly. And then again about timing, you're going to apply October 1st for the federal aid, and in the state of Arkansas for the state financial aid. And your schools, you're going to take your schools and see when you apply this year, and then for your upcoming sophomore, junior, and senior years. You're going to know those deadlines. And what are you going to do? You're going to do that every year again. So your job then is to stay enrolled and stay in contact with your financial aid office so that you know what you need to do next. They'll be in contact with you, or they will send you emails and so forth. And then we like to meet you all too. We like to know the faces of the people that we give the aid to. All right, and you'll do that each year. Thanks. The next slide is just some information about some continued websites there that can help you out. And I hope you have a great rest of the week and enjoyed my time. I've enjoyed my time with you. I just wish I could see your faces.
Thanks, Denise. Appreciate that so